outcomes. It's not enough to say, well, we're trying, because the kids are the ones paying the price.
Well, No Child Left Behind, too, Andy, it opens the door to, if you completely fail in a system, it opens the door to privatizing the whole thing.
Yeah, and that was just the wrong way to deal with it. But
right.
Just like unions, trustee
right.
organizations that don't act effectively or democratically, I think there are some public schools, individual schools that need to get new principals and new leadership,
sure,
because
absolutely.
our kids should not have to suffer in these public schools if they're not educating them.
That's right. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, President Stern. I like your book. I'm reading it now.
Thanks.
I encourage everyone out there to get it also. But I'm a member of Local 73. It's a public local, and, a lot of politics play a great deal in our daily work environment and also our lives. So, in Local 73 and SEIU period gives a lot of money to the politicians. And sometimes when they get in office, sometimes they forget who their original supporters are. So, how do we hold these politicians accountable? And do you think, where all this millions and millions of dollars are going, do you think it's a good investment in the long run?
Well, I definitely think, and we've seen it for the home care workers and child care workers in Illinois, that politics does matter. I mean, these were workers who were not making decent living, had no health care, and then women like Barbara Diamond, all of a sudden finds herself with over a $10,000 raise in health care for the first time in her life. And politics mattered in that case. At the same time, as I wrote about in my book, I'm tired of politicians who are after my vote
you
the
really
day before
were
the election.
About that.
And
I'm so sick of those.
And after my throat the day after
said,
the election.
I'm a leader of workers and not an ATM machine. I love that.
So we're starting a new organization. I hope you'll participate. It's with other progressives around the country. It's called They Work for Us. And it really is about not electing politicians, but unelecting them, particularly Democrats. And you have plenty here in Chicago around the big box ordinance who really let working people down. And so we need to not just elect them and spend all those millions. We really need to take some of them out of office to teach a lesson that when you run for office on a certain group of issues, we expect you to be accountable to those interests and those issues.
All right. Let's take another call. I am not an ATM machine, said Andy Stern. You saw it here. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi. How you doing?
Hey.
We're cool.
Hi, my name's Joe Valance.
Okay.
I used to work for the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority as a janitor.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a company called Windy City Maintenance came in.
Uh-oh.
And the Duffs.
Duffs.
Great Duffs.
Yep.
Just kicked us all out of jobs.
Got it.
Of course, the Duffs went to the penitentiary for this. And they were told to pay about $22 million in fines, which was upheld by a higher court. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to know what happened to our jobs.
Well, I think that's, in corruption and political cronyism, is corrupting not just America, but it's making it really hard for workers in the public sector, like Local 73, to maintain their reputation. So I'm glad that people who've done illegal things finally get caught, because too often they get away with it. But we need laws, which we've passed in Washington and other states, that say when contractors turn over, the workers stay. And they get a chance for 90 days, to keep their jobs. And unless they're fired for just cause, they're not going to be thrown out because some new political entity, gets a government contract. And I think, clearly when we talk about politics matter, it really is important in cities like Chicago, to try to create new laws where people keep their jobs when the contractors turn over. It's just the management, that has changed.
Absolutely. And we also, we're particularly, the spotlight is on Chicago right now for probably not running in a very moral way.
I've noticed that. I've heard about it.
Yeah, the bodies are buried still. And there's a guy there's a new Elliot Ness in town. He's not finished his work. His name is Fitzpatrick. But we're hoping that the outcome of that will be a much cleaner, more democratically run Chicago for the working people. Hello, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Stern, this is the first time I've actually been made aware of you, and I must say that, I don't know, I'm just being honest, but I'm very impressed with you, sir.
Thanks so much.
And I honestly could not find any point of disagreement with anything that you've said so far.
You're kidding.
Today.
You argue with me every week.
Say something I can disagree with now.
You argue with me every week.
Well, but usually we're in the same accord to a degree. But what I'd like to ask you, two things, Mr. Stern. Number one, can you elaborate a little bit on NAFTA and how, in conjunction with the application of NAFTA, how there's also been I don't know if I want to say subtle, but certainly an attempt to eradicate unions here in America, number one. Two, and that has, in effect, driven down wages, number one. And then number two, I'd like for you to address the racism inherent within unions that seem to prevent minorities from leadership positions and even inclusion in the unions. Thank you.
Let me start with the second one. I've gotten myself in trouble, but I'll say it again. I mean, unions did have a problem. We were overly male, overly pale, and overly stale. And I think, there is a lot of skepticism at times about unions because of our history of excluding people from membership, particularly in some of the construction trades. And I think what I'm so proud about our union, is if you look at our leadership at every single level, the highest level of the union, down to the shop steward level, we are the most diverse union in America. We have leaders of every race and color, gay and straight, playing critical roles in our union. And I'm proud of it. And it's taken a lot of work. And Local 73 and others, have also been part of this very significant change process. NAFTA has been a disaster. I mean, we got overpromised that trade was going to be the answer to all of our problems, as I said in my book. Now Bob Rubin says, well, we probably promised a little too much about trade, because in the end, what we have is Mexico is poorer than it was. Mm-hmm. The wages are lower than they were, and all they've done is help facilitate the wages in the United States to go lower as well. Trade didn't bring anyone up except for the profits of American corporations.
Listen, if you like these ideas, as our last caller who argues with me every week seems to, perhaps I wasn't making myself clear, you should read the book, A Country That Works by Andy Stern. Getting America Back on Track. Get it. It's out now, right, Andy?
Yes, and the other thing you can do, which is even more important than the book itself, is to go on our website, A Country That Works, and offer your ideas. www.acountrythatworks.com, because we're trying to start a conversation. I don't have all the answers. I have a set of opinions, and I'm glad some people like some of them. Other people have other ideas. What America needs is a conversation about its future. It's not about Democrats and Republicans or left and right. It's about our country and our kids and our children, and we need a plan, and we need to talk about it as Americans, in our living rooms, in our communities, our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, wherever we are. We need a new discussion in America.
Our unions, too.
Our unions
hello, you're
as
on
well.
the air. Steve, is that
yes,
you?
I want to make two
Steve,
points.
hello.
Hello. Yes,
Hi.
I want to make 2 points. One with regard to the issue of education. I think you're absolutely correct with regard to your assertion that higher education isn't a panacea. But I do think you're missing one important contingent of this, and that is that persons with college degrees tend to acquire a skill set which, though not applied necessarily to a particular field that perhaps constitutes job growth, the communication skills, the skill set that they've developed will allow them to better invest their money down the road, become entrepreneurs. So a college education outside of simply applying it to a particular field where the job growth is, it will help you to be wealthier and make more money irrespective of that. So we do need to
or maybe
that.
just be a person, right, Steve?
And also I wanted to ask the question, I've made the contention in a recent research paper that I wrote regarding the question of health care in America. And it's my contention that it's not that reform in this country isn't going to come from this sort of grassroots effort. Instead, it's going to come with a collaboration between that element in our society and also corporate America. When the CEO of GM recently said, I thought I was in the automobile manufacturing business, and I find out I'm in the healthcare business, it adds $1,500 worth of cost to every GM car. So it's going to be corporate America that pushes public policy change, because in other countries, in Germany, when a Volkswagen is produced, Volkswagen doesn't bear that burden.
Absolutely right.
So again, I think that there's going to be a collaborative effort here, and it's not going to become out of some sense of altruism. It's going to become out of hard, bottom-line economic reality.
So just two facts, and let me just answer that.
We've been trying, right?
Yeah. I mean, two facts. One is that Starbucks pays more for health care than it does for coffee beans, and the average corporation now pays more for health care than they make in profits. Well, that's just unsustainable besides the $1,500. That's why I wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal about a horse and buggy healthcare system. And I wrote a letter to the 500 CEOs because I agree with you. We need to turn this into an economic issue as well as a moral issue. And American business leaders need to step forward and say the employer-based healthcare system doesn't work. It is not the basis of our competitive success. And you have to do something, Congress, about it. I think when they and unions get together, and I was shocked to hear Lee Scott, the CEO of Walmart, say on Charlie Rose that business and labor have to work together to solve this problem. Now, there's a time I agree with Lee Scott.
But so far, they're not knocking our door down. Is that what you're saying?
No, some of them are calling. I just think, we're willing to get out in public and say something that a lot of union leaders don't necessarily agree with right now. I'm saying to the CEOs, you have to lead this fight. Unions have a part in it, but you need to lead. And where are those leaders, I think, is the question we face. And I'm hopeful, Joanna, in the next 6 months, we're going to find some business leaders who are ready to do something.
Well, if the rates of health care keep going up the way they are, it's astronomical, really. And
well, when you talk about fiduciary responsibility,
yes.
which we owe, what do they owe more to their shareholders than to get the health care off the price of their product?
Absolutely. And the government, as you point out in your book, all the different ways that the government gives corporations a break.
Yeah.
Why don't they stop that and work for both corporations and the American people by finding a way to help subsidize universal health care?
Absolutely. I just think it's a perfect solution for a leadership. In terms of elected officials, you can solve a problem for business, and you can solve an anxiety for almost every American family. Half, of the bankruptcies in America are because of unpaid health care bills.
Right.
And we just issued another report that says most Americans do not have 3 months' worth of savings. They cannot get through one medical emergency. That's not the way Americans should live.
Right. So that's the emergency. And I think everywhere you go, I'm sure when you mention that health care has to be fixed, I'm sure everybody just rises up and says, absolutely.
I think it's time. Everybody knows it's
time
time in America.
It is a horse and buggy system, and you'll learn more about it and what we can do, all of us together in a discussion, to change things by reading A Country That Works by none other than the International President of the Service Employees International Union, who's here right next to me. Can you believe it? It's a first for SEIU Says, by reading the book, A Country That Works by Andy Stern, and we're so really grateful. I just want to mention before we leave the air that if you like this, you're going to love our show next week, because Andy's being here has inspired our president, Christine Boardman, to come on next week as well. To hit the bricks and come on to SEIU Says. And I've been getting all kinds of calls from very prestigious people who now want to be on this show. So you are completely responsible for the Nielsen rating that we're going to get on this thing. Again, I thank you. Hope everybody will check out A Country That Works. And we'll be hearing a lot more about these ideas and discussing them a lot more together in the union movement and beyond in our communities as time goes on. Because as Andy says, America's in deep you-know-what, and we need to find a way out. All right, thanks, everybody, and good night.